Richard Cranor, welcome. We're actually in your hotel room, okay? But
it's nice, huh? You like it?
The director of Simply Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, that's great.
Could you tell me a little bit about the story of the film?
It's basically a story of a Vietnamese mail-order husband, which I don't think has been done yet. There's a lot of mail-order bride stories that have been done, but my wife and I were trying to come up with an idea that would be interesting, and not only would it be inherently dramatic in its own right, but there would be a lot of comedy in it that would bring to light a lot of issues that I think everybody can relate to. And so yeah, it was basically about a guy who, a mother of two daughters, brings over from Vietnam in the hopes that the daughters will fall in love with the guy, marry him, and in that way kind of keep her culture, her sense of her family's identity alive. And what happens is a lot of people's perceptions about other people, their own race, what it means to be, in a family, it all kind of comes to a head, and the guy changes a lot of people's lives in a very positive and dramatic way. It brings a family actually back together that was falling apart for a while.
So then the mail order husband is really just made up of? Did you have friends or something who also did that? Or?
Boy, I mean, we've had situations we know of where people have gone to, moms have had relative. Well, my wife's family actually, there's been times her dad's tried to get her to meet, certain guys from Vietnam that he kind of wants her to fall in love with, So it happens, but we haven't met any mail-order husbands yet. But I don't know, give it time, maybe be able to come up with some. I don't know. I don't know of any personally, but it's meant to draw attention to. It was meant to be a catalyst for the story, something new, and something to bring attention to some bigger subjects that we were trying to get attention towards. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
So the film is about Vietnamese living in America. How was it to film with Vietnamese and mostly directing them, being of course not Vietnamese?
Yeah. Well, it was we all had a lot in common actually. I mean the whole thing about the story was to I wanted to be, even though it's an Asian American film, I wanted to be universal. And I actually have spent probably 5 to 7 years now being with my wife's family, and I've seen them and all the issues that they go through. And as an outsider looking in, I have a perspective where I don't have to live in those situations, but I'm able to see them. And even though it's Vietnamese, I think like all the situations they're in are universal, and they're issues that anybody can relate to. And so the Vietnamese part of it was more about the specific details and the culture and that sort of thing. But the actual story itself, I mean, I want it to be universal. And so anybody whose family has to leave because of a war and come to the United States or any place and learn to integrate to that society, that's a struggle. And anybody can, if they're really willing to, look at it and see the humanity of it. And so even though they were Vietnamese, I just had to learn enough Vietnamese to get by. And then I had to always, but constantly, there's Vietnamese actually have so many different dialects that they're not even sure what the right thing to say is sometimes in Vietnamese. So we had to constantly battle over who's speaking the real Vietnamese and who isn't. But eventually we figured it out, I hope.
But do you think that you, as an outsider, can see specific details clearer because you're not a real part of that, so you can see it on a more broader level, more clearer? Yeah.
Well, it's about, I think, being more objective. Because my dad isn't making me marry a Vietnamese man. He hasn't asked me to do that yet. Because of that, I don't have to deal with that emotionally. I'm emotionally attached to it in the sense that if a family like the dad, they had to leave because of a war and come to this country, and the fact that he doesn't want his daughter to marry an American, most people will be like, well, aren't you offended by that? I'm like, no, I mean, I understand why. You know, he doesn't want to lose his culture. I mean, he didn't want to come here in the first place, you know, and that's not his fault for wanting to feel that way. So I understand that, you know, and wouldn't make a judgment on that because of that. I mean, I sympathize with him and why he feels that way. It's neither good nor it's bad. So as an outsider looking in, I can kind of see everything that's going on and see the humanity of it and not take sides with like either the girls or the father or the male or husband. I can kind of see how it all plays out. So it does help to be, you know, because the girls are defensive, you know, the mom's yelling at them, the mom's telling them, hey, marry this guy. They're like, no, leave us alone. And so, you know, I don't have an allegiance towards either one. I think they're both valid. And it's a matter of just seeing it all kind of come together.